Hi everyone, it's me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alanna and I'm a Canadian, but I have been living here in the UK for the last 6 years, and let me tell you, there's some things that I hate about it. Today I'm going to share 8 things that I hate about the UK. So without further ado, let's go. One thing that I really struggle with living here in the UK, can you guess what I'm going to say? Because I'm going to talk about the winters. Yay! I find that the winters here can be just absolutely miserable. So seasonal depression is a thing that I get to deal with. Yay, if you are like that as well. I know what that feels like, bud, and it doesn't feel very nice. So yeah, winters here in the UK can be extremely dark and wet and cold and miserable and depressing. And I really don't like it. Where I'm from in Ontario, Canada, we certainly get our fair shares of tough winters, but I just find it is so much brighter typically, and instead of rain and gray clouds, it can be very bright and sunny and snowy. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to every place. A lot of people say, well, you're from Canada, it's the same latitude as the UK, so it can't be that different. But actually, where I'm from in like Toronto region, it's the same latitude as Tuscany. So no, it's not quite the same as the UK. So as a foreigner, how can you deal with this? Or as a British person, how can you deal with this? Well, get yourself a big old cup of tea, get on the couch, get a big blanket, and just wait for it to pass. Number 2 on our list, one of the things I hate about the UK, the roads. Let me explain. For a time, I had a car here in the UK and I was driving. So I would commute to work and then, drive around and do stuff. You know how it is when you have a car, you typically use it. The roads here in the UK, wow. Okay, so there's a couple things. There's a couple things. As a foreigner, just right off the bat, I'm already more anxious than normal because I am driving in a foreign country. I'm driving on the left side of the road. I am sitting on the opposite side of the car that I'm used to. There's a lot of things that you have to get used to right off the bat. But one of the things that I never really could get used to were the narrow roads. So one in particular that stands out, and I think Brits can agree, country roads. Excuse me? So country roads just fill me with dread. Even now, I've just broken out into like a cold sweat. So you will find yourself, you don't even have to be that far out in the country. You'll be on a country road and it is technically 2 lanes of traffic. You are driving and there's going to be people coming towards you, but the road is only wide enough for 1 car at a time. So there's been lots of instances where you're driving along and maybe you turn a corner and all of a sudden there's a car there and you can't pass. So one person has to back up to a certain point or just keep backing up till the other person can get around, or you have to try and like kind of go up onto like the grass or a verge or something so another car can come past. I hate it. I really, truly hate it. Roundabouts are another thing that where maybe if you're British and that is all you've ever known, it's less intimidating. But as a foreigner from North America, we only have roundabouts as like a novelty thing. Like I know Canada has a couple and they're like, ooh, look we've got roundabouts, how cool. But typically, and our Americans are the same, we use traffic lights. And there's so much less guesswork or like road intuition needed when you use a traffic light, because if it is green, you go. And if it is red, you do not go. Where of course here with the abundance of roundabouts, you have to figure out when it is good to go, when you can find an opening in traffic and you can get out into the roundabout. That can be really intimidating. For a anxious driver like myself, it just makes it a bit worse. So yeah, one of the things I really hate here is the roads. Currently, I don't have a car. I sold it a couple years ago and I've been relying on public transport, which has its own pros and cons. I'll definitely get a car again in the future, fingers crossed, in which case I can go through all of this again. I feel so rusty when it comes to driving because it's been so long. So expect more videos in the future about driving and hopefully not crashing. Number 3, with the roads that I hate, one of the things I hate about the UK is the traffic. Wow. So if you find yourself, especially in the southeast where there's just like a lot of people, there's a lot of people down here, traffic during rush hour can be unbelievable. God forbid there's an accident during rush hour. It's taken me hours to get home before when there's been an accident. It's just the traffic just truly sucks. So one of the things that I love about living here, right, is it's older. There's beautiful architecture. There's a lot of character and individuality to buildings and to towns and to villages. Like there's just a lot of uniqueness and history and all that kind of stuff. But with that comes the fact that the roads here typically were not designed for the amount of cars that are on them, which unfortunately means traffic can just be unbearable. So again, while I don't have a car right now, I do not miss traffic and I do not miss rush hour because it is just brutal. And I do find that while North America, I think, can be devoid of a lot of personality and uniqueness, a lot of towns look the same. Sometimes you can't even tell if it's American or if it's Canadian. Like there's less aesthetically pleasing elements. We certainly can say that our towns and our roads are far better laid out. They're much newer typically, and they have been laid out with traffic and the amount of people in mind. So if you ever find yourself in North America driving and you're used to British roads, you're gonna have a breeze. To be honest, it'll probably be boring to you because the roads are so wonderfully laid out for the most part. They're long and straight and wide. There's loads of room. There's just like, it's wonderful. And unfortunately, when you use public transport, you're not immune to that either. I remember one time back when I was taking the bus to and from work, I had to take 2 separate buses. So I get the first bus, I transfer over to my second bus coming home, and there was an accident and there was no like real alternative route for that area. Like you just had to go that way, which is another thing to do with the layout of the roads and the towns and villages and stuff. So, I mean, I'm on the bus has to go this way really, there's no other way. We can't get around it at any point. And it got to the point where my bus, that portion should have only taken about half hour. And I think at like an hour plus, I finally went up to the driver and I was like, hey, can I just get off and I'll walk? So he opened the door and a bunch of us just got off just at a random road and I just walked the rest home. Cause an accident is horrible and I'd never want you to be in an accident, but I just find it is just so much worse here for the roads and the traffic. Number 4 on our list is all about money and how being a foreigner sucks. So the UK does this for a reason, and there's lots of different elements to this, but the main takeaway is that as a foreigner in the UK, you are going to be paying more than the people around you. And unfortunately, there's just no way to get around it. So as a foreigner, my car insurance is through the roof. And again, I understand why. I'm a foreign driver, even though I am a resident and I've been here for a long time and I've driven a lot here and in Canada, my car insurance is just shocking. I get it, but it doesn't mean that I like it. Another thing being a foreigner is that you're gonna have no credit. So if you are trying to apply for things, credit cards, mortgages, any type of financial check, you're gonna fail them for a while because the UK thinks you have absolutely no credit and you shouldn't be given anything. So it just makes life really difficult. The visa itself is very expensive. The NHS surcharge as part of your visa is really expensive. Not only do you pay a NHS surcharge, but you also pay taxes. So you're kind of paying for the NHS twice, which, okay, fair, I get it. On top of all of regular taxes and visas and NHS surcharges and all that stuff, You also, of course, pay national insurance, and you pay into public financial support services and all that kind of stuff. But as a foreigner, I cannot access public funds. I am restricted from doing that. So even though I pay into them, I don't receive any benefit from that. So as a foreigner, if you move to any country, of course, I'm talking about the UK, but I imagine that this is worldwide. If you move to any country, you are going to have to hustle just a bit more. You've made the choice to move to that place. And while it's been a wonderful experience, I'm not going to sugarcoat it that financially it is much more difficult than if I just stayed in Canada. So it's kind of like if you want it, which if you want to move abroad, if you want to move to the UK, I hope you can make it happen. You're just gonna have to fight for it because it is gonna be more expensive. Number 5, more relevant than ever, we have the cost. Just about everything. If you are a foreigner from North America, I think this is particularly jarring because typically in North America, you are going to have access to a larger home with more like quality of life amenities in the home than you will have here in the UK, and you just have to get over it. So currently I'm kind of getting towards the stage of like, could I buy a house? Would I like to buy a house? I'm saving to buy a house. I hope one day in the future, maybe. But I have to come to terms with the fact that buying a house in the UK is going to be smaller. It's likely going to be semi-attached to another house. It's likely not going to have a fully fitted basement, have a laundry room, have a proper driveway, have a big backyard. But those are the things that I could have if I bought a house in Canada. Getting all of those things in a property, even getting like a pool, realistically, that is not unattainable in Canada. Here in the UK, it certainly feels like impossible. Unless you're like super rich, absolutely not. And whenever I talk about the cost of buying a house or the cost of living, everyone in the comments always says, yeah, well, you should move up north. I only pay so-and-so for a house, or I only pay this much in rent, which is true. If you are willing to move up north, you're willing to relocate to a different part of the country, perhaps a part of the country that you are not familiar with, because I've only ever had vacations up north. I've certainly never lived or worked up there. If you are willing to relocate up there, cost of homes and cost of living is cheaper. But there's a reason for that. There's a lot of like socioeconomic reasons why it is cheaper to move up north. It's cheaper to buy a house. And you have to make your peace with that. Not because the north is better, the north is cheaper, but there's a reason. Typically, historically, the UK spends a lot of money on the south. The infrastructure is better. The wages are better. The NHS trusts are significantly better in the south, which is really sad. It's really sad that the north gets ignored with a lot of these types of initiatives and funding and infrastructure and all that stuff. So yes, you can buy a house cheaper up north. That is true. But that there are things that you have to make your peace with that are worse up north. So yeah, there's just a lot when it comes to cost of living, especially now with energy. Energy is like a whole separate topic currently here in the UK. Cost of living, north versus south costs as well. There's just a lot to consider. But I know that if I were to move back home, back to Canada, back to Ontario, I know that I could afford a much larger house, a house with a big backyard, a house with amenities that are just not really likely here in the UK. And that's something you have to decide. Are you willing to forgo that stuff to live in the UK? Or are you not? Because it's going to be different for everybody. Next up, and kind of related to my last rant, a thing that I hate about the UK is the level of classism that is still prevalent. Perhaps I see more of this because I am on the internet and I can interact with so many people from different parts of the UK. Maybe in a regular day-to-day life, this is something that's less of a thing, but I do find that classism is still alive and well here in the UK, and there are so many variables that we can divide ourselves up by. What school did you go to? Did you go to a grammar school? What university did you go to? What does your accent sound like? What kind of accent do you have? That's a big one because you can kind of pinpoint where people live or where they're from in the UK. Are you from the South? Are you from the North? That is its own division. There's just so many really pointless, to be honest, pointless and silly ways that people divide themselves up into groups. I get it. Humans want to be in tribes. You want to support your tribe and stuff, but it's just so meaningless. Even something as silly as like, well, what grocery store do you buy your food at? Who cares? Next up, one of the things I hate about the UK, can you guys guess what this is? If you've watched any of my videos, you probably already know, and it's no aircon. Now, while I understand why the UK doesn't have aircon, and it's typically not something that's pre-built into homes, it's not something that's popular, maybe in 10 years it will be, who knows. I get why we don't have it, but I still hate it. Summer always used to be my favorite season. I love being out in the sun and hanging out and just like summertime, it's awesome. But I realized that as a kid and as a teenager in Canada, I loved summer. But then when you had enough of it, you got too hot, you had enough sun, maybe too much sun, I would go inside to the air conditioning. And it would be comfortable and it would be cool and you'd almost forget that it's like 30 degrees outside because you are comfortable inside. Whereas here in the UK, it's really hard to escape the heat and it can be very difficult to ignore. So especially this summer when we had our heat wave, I saw it get to 38 degrees inside, which is deeply unpleasant, obviously, but it's really difficult to do anything, let alone like being outside and enjoying the summer and stuff. Like I was working or I was trying to work. So I'm upstairs sitting at my desk in the office and I'm trying to work and the sweat is just like dripping off and you're trying to stay hydrated, but like I'm getting headachy because I'm just getting so much heat and there's no relief from it. So yeah, no aircon is tough. And it's something that if you come from a country that actually uses it, you have to acclimatize. And that took me a long time. Even now, I'm definitely more acclimatized. My body is a bit better at dealing with it, but it still sucks. So I have changed my mind. My new favorite season is autumn. I am now an autumn person because struggling through the heat of summer, when you're trying to work, when you're trying to like have a conference call or you're answering emails and stuff and you're just like absolutely dripping sweat, it's a no for me. Next up, one of the things I hate about the UK, and this needs like a little bit of explanation perhaps, is the drinking culture. Specifically, the binging. Now, I love a classic, traditional, cozy pub. I love them and I hope that they stay around for many years to come. However, I don't really like or appreciate or want to participate in the binge drinking culture. So I love going to the pub, I love hanging out, maybe having a pint, maybe I get to try a new cider that I've never tried before. But with that comes the binging. Like you can't have one or the other. If you're gonna have the beautiful pubs, you are going to have people that binge at them. Say you live in like a university town or a university city, there's lots of young people, you kind of expect that there's going to be more like drunk people around, right? They're young, they're at uni, they're gonna be binging at the pub or at the bar or whatever, and they're gonna be walking home in the streets and they're shouting and stuff. You kind of expect that, and there is some level of understanding that that's gonna happen. But for me, I have lived near multiple pubs, okay, in non-university areas. All right, just regular old towns and villages. And I can't tell you how many times, like on a Thursday night, maybe a Tuesday night, you've got grown men absolutely pissed in the streets walking home. I respect your right to get wasted at the pub, to just get absolutely trashed. Okay, that is your decision, 100%. I personally don't like it. the level of binging, and it definitely feels different when it's, you know, a 55-year-old man stumbling home with a bunch of people on a Tuesday, shouting in the streets, just absolutely wasted. Just not really for me. But if you choose a property near a pub, like I have done multiple times, and I'm probably gonna do it again in the future, that's something that you just have to come to terms with. I guess I sort of anticipated it would be younger teenager, like, you know, oh, they're just kids, they're idiots, they're drinking too much. No, it is the grown men. That is something that I've just had to deal with. I've had to stop filming videos before, especially at a previous property, because a drunk guy would come out of the pub and just start screaming, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll come back to this video another time. It's just something that I don't like. I love a pub. Okay, and getting pissed the odd time, I get it, you know, I've been there. But there is something to be said about the binge drinking. Now, while I hate these 8 things about the UK, I do love my life here. I don't know why I'm saying this. I know there's already people who are very upset in the comments. That's absolutely fine. You know, you do you, buddy. If you like this video and you want to watch more videos, which would be totally awesome, would you like a spicy video? If that's the case, why not check out this one where I share my scariest experience in the UK. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!